I want you to imagine something for a second. Close your eyes, if you can, and put yourself in this situation. You are trapped inside the wreckage of a spaceship.
Oh, wow. Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah, and it's been weeks, maybe even months. The
Yeah.
power is completely dead,
Mm.
and it is freezing. And, I mean, we are not talking about a harsh winter here on Earth.
Right, no.
We are talking about the absolute bone-cracking thermodynamic void of deep space.
Just absolute zero.
Exactly. You are locked in a tiny dark metal closet of a room, rationing out the last few breaths of stale air,
Yeah.
literally waiting for your biological functions to shut down.
It's a terrifying thought.
It really is. And then out of the blackness, a light, another ship, and it's coming right toward you.
Salvation.
Right. So you use every last ounce of your failing strength to send out a distress signal. You know they see you
Yeah.
mechanically, logically, they have to see you.
Right, the sensors would pick it up immediately.
Exactly. And then the ship just keeps going.
Unbelievable.
It doesn't slow down. It doesn't alter course. It just passes you by and disappears back into the void, leaving you to freeze.
Wow.
So I want you to really think about this.
Yeah.
How would that moment of absolute, complete, unadulterated abandonment change you? What kind of person would you become in the aftermath of knowing someone looked at your dying body and, well, just decided you weren't worth the fuel to stop?
It's an incredibly harrowing thought experiment, honestly. Largely because the damage wouldn't just be physical.
Right.
Like the physical trauma of asphyxiation and hypothermia is horrific, of course. But the real destruction happens in the psyche.
In the mind.
Yeah. You are experiencing the psychic shattering of realizing that your life has absolutely zero value to your fellow man.
Ouch.
In the vastness of space, that social contract we all rely on completely disintegrates. And that is the kind of psychological rupture that doesn't just leave a scar. It fundamentally rewires the architecture of your consciousness.
Because the brain has to cope somehow.
Exactly. The human brain is desperate for meaning, and when faced with that level of meaningless cruelty, it will often manufacture a new, much darker meaning just to survive the shock.
Right. The brain builds a defense mechanism, and sometimes, that mechanism is a weapon.
Oh, absolutely.
And that exact horrifying moment of abandonment is the spark that ignites the universe we are exploring on this deep dive. Today, we are stepping into the incredibly complex, often disturbing world of Alfred Bester's science fiction masterpiece, The Star's My Destination.
A phenomenal piece of work.
It really is. But I want to set expectations right up front for you. Our mission today isn't just to, recap a classic space opera.
No, definitely not.
We're diving into the mechanics of this universe to unpack a truly savage, unflinching psychological portrait of obsession. We're looking at the anatomy of revenge, the terrifying potential of human enhancement, and ultimately, what it means to push past the very limits of our biology.
And we are dealing with a text that actively defies the traditional comfort of the genre, too. Well, science fiction, especially from the era when this was written, often relied on very clear morality tales. Competent heroes solving problems with science and reason.
Right, the Golden Age stuff.
Exactly. But Bester's work is a violent rejection of that. It operates much more like a psychological thriller crossed with a classical Jacobean revenge tragedy.
Oh, I like that comparison.
Yeah, it demands that we look at the absolute ugliest parts of the human survival instinct.
To set the stage for you, we need to understand the fundamental physics and sociology of the world Bester built, because everything revolves around a single, world-altering paradigm shift.
The jaunting.
Yes, this is a future where humanity has completely revolutionized society through a biological mechanism called jaunting. Essentially, human beings have figured out how to teleport using nothing but the power of their minds.
It's an incredible concept.
You think of a place, you visualize the coordinates, and bam, you physically manifest there. It's not a machine you step into. It's a latent human ability that was unlocked.
And as you can imagine, that completely upends everything.
Transportation, global economics, borders, privacy, everything has changed.
Right.
And on top of that, the geopolitical background of this world features a highly unstable, deeply terrifying superweapon known as Pyre.
Right, which we will definitely get into.
Oh, for sure. And right in the center of this volatile mix is a truly brutal man named Gully Foyle. Okay, let's unpack this because I want to start right at the baseline with Foyle. He isn't your typical spacefaring protagonist.
Not even close.
We aren't dealing with a brilliant scientist or a noble captain here.
No, Bester makes a very deliberate, almost confrontational choice in establishing Gully Foyle's baseline. Foyle is not noble. He is a third-class mechanic.
Right.
He is brutish, he is semi-literate, and crucially, he is completely lacking in drive.
He's just floating.
Literally and figuratively, yeah.
Yeah.
The text presents him as someone who possesses the latent physical and mental potential to be anything, but he just lacks the ambition to ever be anything more than a grunt.
So he's like an exploration of stagnant human potential.
Precisely. In a society that has literally unlocked the power of the mind to traverse the globe, Foyle is content to just exist, doing the bare minimum.
He's the ultimate underachiever, just taking up space.
Yeah.
Until he's literally floating through space inside of that ship we mentioned, the Nomad.
Right. Bester reduces him to a living machine, barely clinging to biological existence in the freezing void.
Just scraping by.
Yeah. Foyle has been surviving in this wreckage for months, living in a storage locker, literally scraping frost off the walls for hydration.
Ugh, that's so grim.
It is. And that brings us to the catalyst you described in the introduction. The ship that passes him by. The one that detects his frantic signals and actively chooses to ignore him. That ship is called the Vorga.
Now, I want to dig into the mechanics of that abandonment, because the Vorga ignoring him doesn't just, make him angry.
No, it's way beyond a grudge.
Right. It completely overwrites his operating system. It replaces his fundamental biological will to survive with something entirely different. How does the text explain that shift?
Well, it treats it as an alchemical transformation born out of pure, unadulterated shock.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
So before the Vorga appears, Foyle's primary drive is mere biological persistence. He wants to breathe. He wants to delay freezing to death for one more hour.
Basic survival mode.
Exactly. But the sheer audacity of the Vorga's cruelty creates this psychological singularity. The instinct for survival is annihilated and completely replaced by an all-consuming, terrifying desire for vengeance.
Wow.
The text explicitly frames this as the birth of a monster. Foyle becomes a force of nature driven entirely by rage.
And he doesn't just want them to apologize.
No, he doesn't want justice. He doesn't want to report the Vorga to the authorities. He wants total apocalyptic destruction.
It's a fascinating structural choice because, Bester throws this very fantastical, almost magical concept of mind teleportation at us right from the jump. But then he immediately grounds the narrative in the grim, unyielding, scientifically accurate physics of being adrift in space.
Yes, the thermodynamics.
Right. The thermodynamics of heat loss, the mathematics of oxygen depletion, the actual physical decay of Foyle's cellular structure. It strips all the romance out of space travel.
Completely.
The magic of the universe is put on pause, and we are just intimately locked in a dark box with a freezing, dying man who has been deeply wronged.
And that contrast is essential for the believability of Foyle's transformation. By making the physics of the Nomad wreckage so brutal and meticulously realistic, Bester grounds the psychology.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you believe in the enormity of Foyle's monstrous rage because you have viscerally understood the hyper-realistic agony of his environment. If the setting felt like a breezy space adventure, his total descent into madness wouldn't feel earned.
It makes me think of an engine that's been completely flooded with the wrong kind of fuel.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you have this machine, Foyle, that was designed to just kind of putter along on low-grade, everyday existence. A lawnmower engine, essentially.
Right.
But suddenly, because of the Vorga, you flood that engine with high-octane, highly concentrated rocket fuel.
And what happens?
Well, the engine runs, sure. In fact, it runs faster and harder than it was ever built to run. But it's running dangerously hot.
It's tearing itself apart.
Exactly. The gaskets are blowing, the metal is warping, it's shaking itself apart. It's functioning, but it is fundamentally destroying itself in the process.
That's a perfect analogy.
It begs this really dark question about human psychology. Can trauma ever actually create positive growth? Or does it only ever build monsters? Does the rocket fuel always destroy the engine?
And that is the central philosophical tension driving the first phase of Foyle's journey. Because the undeniable, deeply uncomfortable truth the text presents is that the trauma actually does elevate him.
In a dark way.
Yeah. The pre-trauma Foyle, the sluggish mechanic, would never have had the willpower, the focus, or the sheer cognitive energy to achieve anything of note.
Right, he was just a grunt.
The trauma of the Vorga is what finally activates his latent potential. It gives him extreme, diamond-hard purpose. But as your engine analogy points out, the fuel is corrosive.
It's toxic.
It's malignant growth. He becomes infinitely more capable, stronger, and more determined, but at the cost of his empathy, his morality, and really his humanity.
And we quickly see that raw rage alone isn't going to be enough. You can't just, punch a starship out of the sky.
As much as he might want to.
Right. Foyle is still fundamentally a grunt. He has no money, no societal power, and the Vorga is protected by massive corporate wealth. He needs resources.
Desperately.
And this leads us to how he begins to manipulate the very fabric of this bizarre hyper-capitalist society to completely reinvent himself. He realizes he's actually sitting on a gold mine inside the Nomad.
Exactly. Foyle's brutal pragmatism kicks in. He knows that the wrecked ship contains two incredible world-altering assets.
$1 billion credits in platinum bullion.
Yes. And a stash of that highly unstable, deeply mysterious mineral we mentioned earlier, pyrite.
Right.
So he leverages the knowledge of these assets to fund his transformation. He literally buys himself a new life.
It's a total reinvention.
Yeah, he undergoes extreme physical reconstruction to hide his identity. He adopts the persona of a flamboyant aristocrat, and he uses the sheer leverage of his wealth to claw his way from absolute frozen poverty right into the upper echelons of society.
But I want to push back on the idea that this is just a standard revenge funding plot. He doesn't just, buy guns and mercenaries.
No, not at all.
He buys his way into a very specific kind of high society. And Bester constructs a world here that serves as a massive, biting satire of conspicuous consumption.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's look at the economics of jaunting. We have a world where literally everyone can instantly teleport. You can be in Tokyo for breakfast and New York for lunch for free using your mind.
It's the ultimate democratization of travel.
Exactly. So in a society where instant transportation is a universal baseline, how do the ultra-rich show off? What becomes the ultimate status symbol?
It's one of the most brilliant sociological observations in the text, honestly. Bester posits that when utility becomes ubiquitous and free, the elite will always find a way to commodify inefficiency just to prove they have the capital to burn.
That is so true. So what do?
Well, how do the super rich flaunt their wealth? By absolutely refusing to jaunt.
It's so petty. I love it.
Right. They use archaic, intensely slow, ostentatiously physical modes of transportation. They build massive, ornate trains. They use custom-built antique automobiles.
Animal-drawn carriages?
Yes. They spend fortunes in money and, more importantly, time doing something that could take them a millisecond, purely to signal that their time is so valuable they can afford to waste it.
It's a fascinating exploration of class architecture. The text presents this character, Prestane, who is essentially the head of the megacorporation that owns the Vorga, as the ultimate avatar of this mindset.
Prestane is the embodiment of that entrenched wealth.
Yeah, his whole existence is a monument to what Bester views as the inherent absurdity of the system. But Foyle's sudden injection into this world of forced inefficiency doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah, he makes waves.
He becomes a massive target. Various factions learn about his connection to the Nomad, and everyone wants the pyrite, which eventually lands him in a high-security prison called the Gouffre Martel.
Ah, the Gouffre Martel.
And the mechanics of this prison, I need us to really dig into this because the world building here is staggering.
It really is a masterclass in extrapolating the consequences of a fictional technology. Think about the fundamental problem. If every single human being has the ability to simply think about a location and instantly teleport there, how on earth do you incarcerate anyone?
Right, you can't just put them behind steel bars.
Because they'll just jaunt it to the other side of the bars.
Exactly, you can't handcuff the mind.
So how does the Gouffre Martel achieve a jaunt-proof environment? It attacks the mechanism of jaunting itself.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, jaunting requires two precise pieces of cognitive data. You need to know exactly where you are, and you need to know exactly where you are going. It requires an absolute spatial map in the mind.
Right, a cognitive map.
So the Gouffre Martel is an entirely subterranean complex built within a massive cave system in France.
Pitch black.
Yes, and it is entirely windowless. The architecture is deliberately designed as a disorienting, non-Euclidean labyrinth. Prisoners are moved around randomly.
Oh, that's brutal.
If you don't know the exact spatial coordinates of your physical body, you cannot calculate a safe jaunty. If you try, you risk teleporting into solid rock, which is fatal.
It's a psychological torture chamber built out of limestone. Think of your brain's spatial awareness like a GPS system in your car, right?
Okay, yeah.
To calculate a route, a GPS fundamentally needs two things: your exact current starting coordinates and your destination. The Gufer Martel essentially jams your starting coordinates.
That's a great way to look at it.
You can't draw a line on a map if you don't know where your pen is currently resting. It's such a brilliant architectural irony. You have this society that has been completely, radically liberated by the ultimate freedom of movement.
And their response.
Their institutional response is to invent the most claustrophobic, oppressive, sensory-deprived labyrinths imaginable just to punish people. The technology of ultimate freedom mechanically necessitates the architecture of ultimate confinement.
It's a very bleak view of institutional power. And it is within this absolute confinement that Foyle experiences the next major phase of his evolution. He meets a fellow inmate named Gisbella McQueen, often referred to as Giz.
Right.
She is incredibly sharp, highly educated, and deeply cynical. And she becomes the absolute catalyst for his intellectual awakening.
Wait, hold on. Let me stop you there. If Giz McQueen is in a jaunt-proof prison and they have successfully stripped her of her spatial awareness, how does giving Foyle an education help him escape?
Good question.
Because a larger vocabulary doesn't give you a GPS coordinate. What is the actual mechanism of their escape?
The escape is purely intellectual, which is why Giz is so vital. She teaches him how to observe the imperceptible details of their environment.
Oh, like a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing.
Exactly. She understands the acoustic properties of the caves, the scheduling patterns of the guards, the blind spots in the psychological warfare of the prison.
She reads The Matrix.
Yes. She takes Foyle, who up to this point has been a blunt instrument of pure rage, and she teaches him the mechanics of strategy. They don't jaunt out. They engineer a physical breakout by outthinking the labyrinth.
That's incredible.
And more broadly, Giz teaches Foyle how to operate in the world outside. She teaches him how to speak like an aristocrat, how to understand the complex political and economic chessboard of the solar system, and how to weaponize his new wealth.
Wow.
She takes the raw, unguided missile of his trauma and basically installs a highly sophisticated guidance system.
Which, ironically, makes him infinitely more terrifying. It makes me think about the three core assets Foyle accumulates in this story.
Let's lay them out.
Okay, so you have the 20 billion credits in Platinum. You have the physical planetary scale superweapon of the Pyre. And you have Foyle's own newly unlocked intellectual potential thanks to Giz.
Right.
But when you really look at how he applies this education, I have to ask, are these really three distinct types of resources, or are they actually just three different calibers of the exact same weapon?
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about it. The money is a weapon he uses to bludgeon the economy. The Pyre is a literal weapon. And his intellect, his literacy, his strategy, he doesn't use those to appreciate poetry. He militarizes his own mind.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, your observation strikes right at the thematic heart of Bester's narrative. The novel constantly blurs the line between a resource and an armament.
Right.
For Foyle, there is no difference. His evolution, his gaining of literacy, his mastery of social grace, his understanding of economics, these are not tools of personal enlightenment, they are a customized armory.
Because giving a monster a larger vocabulary doesn't make him civilized. It just allows him to articulate his destruction with terrifying precision.
Precisely.
And this brings us right to the precipice of his real hunt. He has the intellect, he has the limitless wealth, he has the burning radioactive drive. And now, the true violence begins. As the narrative progresses into its second half, the book actively labels this phase the anguish of revenge.
And that framing is deeply intentional by Bester. Because from this point forward, the narrative forces the reader to abandon any lingering hope that Foyle is a traditional anti-hero.
Yeah, we lose that illusion fast.
We are forced to take a very hard, intensely uncomfortable look at his complete dehumanization. He's hunting down Dagenham, the man who was the captain of the Vorga.
Right.
This hunt spans the entire solar system, and Foyle's methods become increasingly unapologetically brutal.
This is where the story completely sheds the skin of a fun, rollicking space adventure. Foyle crosses moral event horizons that you simply cannot uncross. He commits heinous, unforgivable acts in his pursuit of Dagenham. There is a specific horrific sequence involving the sexual assault of a telepathic woman named Robin Wensbury.
Yes.
And the mechanics of this universe make it even darker. Because she is an Esper, a telepath, she isn't just physically violated. Let's talk about how telepathy functions here, because it amplifies the horror of what he does.
Yeah, telepathy in Bester's universe isn't just, hearing words in your head. It is the unmediated transmission of raw cognitive and emotional states.
It's full experiential transfer.
Exactly. When Foyle attacks Robin, she is forced to literally experience his internal landscape. She feels the sheer unadulterated hatred, the psychic rot, and the absolute brokenness of his mind while he is violating her.
That is just deeply upsetting.
She is assaulted with the totality of his monstrosity. It is a profoundly disturbing sequence, and Bester includes it not for cheap shock value, but as a deliberate structural critique of the revenge narrative itself.
Right, because in a standard Hollywood revenge thriller, the quest for vengeance is sanitized.
Oh.
The hero only kills the unequivocally bad guys. They look cool doing it, and they remain morally pure at the end of the movie. The blood just washes off.
Exactly. But The Star's My Destination actively, violently rejects that fantasy. It argues mechanically that the relentless, obsessive pursuit of revenge requires you to systematically dismantle your own humanity.
You can have both.
No,
Yeah.
you cannot be a good person and dedicate your entire existence to destroying someone else. Foyle is no longer an anti-hero. During this phase of the narrative, he is the unequivocal villain.
Yeah, he really is.
The revenge is a self-consuming fire. It is hollowing him out, burning away every last scrap of empathy, restraint, or morality he might have possessed.
It reminds me of someone who spends their entire life digging a tunnel to escape from a maximum security prison.
Okay, let's hear this.
So they dig for decades with a spoon, right? Focused on absolutely nothing but the escape. They break their body, they alienate everyone, they ruin their mind with the obsession. And finally, after 30 years, they break through the final wall, only to realize that their tunnel leads straight into the heart of an active volcano.
Oh, wow.
He gets exactly what he wants, but the destination is absolute oblivion.
That volcano analogy perfectly encapsulates the climax of his hunt. Because Foyle finally achieves his ultimate goal, he tracks down Dagenham, he executes his vengeance.
And what happened?
And what is the mechanical result of that achievement? It is entirely, devastatingly empty.
He gets to the end of the tunnel and there's nothing but fire.
Precisely. The act of vengeance brings him zero psychological peace. And if we look at the mechanics of his biology and his psychology, we understand why.
Why is that?
Well, the entire architecture of his new identity, the extreme physical enhancements, the relentless mental conditioning, the sheer adrenaline that kept him alive in the freezing void, all of that required the goal of vengeance as a load-bearing pillar to sustain it.
So it's holding him up.
Yes. Without the target, the architecture collapses. He no longer has a function. His nervous system, which has been overclocked for years, is suddenly redlining with nowhere to go.
He's burning out.
He is on the verge of a catastrophic physiological breakdown. The text literally refers to him as a burning man, a man consuming his own energy without any output.
Is this where we see the genre of the story fundamentally shift? Like, it starts as a sci-fi survival story, it becomes a revenge thriller, but right here, as his nervous system starts to melt down, it feels like we enter the realm of post-humanist horror.
Oh, definitely.
We really have to ask, what does it actually mean to be human when your biology and your psychology have been treated as nothing more than blunt instruments for an obsession?
It absolutely crosses into post-humanist territory. Foyle has pushed his biology and his psychology so far past the baseline human experience that he has alienated himself from his own species.
He's a machine.
He has turned himself into a bespoke machine designed entirely for destruction. And when the destruction is complete, the machine has no secondary function. It just idles dangerously, vibrating at a frequency that begins to shake its own components to pieces.
And that literal mechanical collapse of his mind leads to what is widely considered one of the most innovative and staggering sequences in mid-century literature.
It is legendary.
Foyle experiences a total catastrophic mental breakdown. But Bester manifests this breakdown through the neurological condition of severe synesthesia. Let's talk about that.
Let's explain the mechanics of synesthesia for a moment. In a standard human brain, sensory inputs are routed to specific processing centers.
Right, like normal wiring.
Exactly. Light hits the optic nerve and goes to the visual cortex. Sound waves hit the eardrum and go to the auditory cortex. Synesthesia is a neurological condition where those pathways cross over. Information meant to stimulate one of your senses inadvertently stimulates several.
So things get mixed up.
Yeah, a person might see sounds as bursts of color or taste specific words. In Foyle's case, as his overclocked nervous system shatters, his sensory processing completely fails. His senses cross over in a chaotic, overwhelming, terrifying feedback loop.
It sounds like a nightmare.
He hears light, he sees sound, he tastes tactile touch. It is a complete cognitive short circuit.
And what makes this so legendary is that Bester didn't just describe this happening in standard prose. He structurally built the breakdown into the physical pages of the book.
The typography.
Yes, he uses experimental typography. He uses fragmented, scattered, visually disruptive prose. He arranges the words on the page in spirals, jagged lines, and chaotic clusters to visually represent a collapsing consciousness.
It's beautiful and terrifying.
It's not just a description of a breakdown. The text itself, the medium you are holding in your hands, physically breaks down.
It was incredibly avant-garde, not just for science fiction, but for literature at the time. By shattering the typography, Bester forces the reader to actively participate in the disorientation.
You literally have to engage with it differently.
Yeah, you have to turn the book sideways, you have to decipher the visual noise. But thematically, this neurological collapse represents the ultimate, inevitable price of his power.
The bill comes due.
The central theme of the narrative crystallizes right here. Unchecked human ambition, combined with extreme technological enhancement and a toxic obsession, leads mathematically to self-destruction. The very enhancements that allowed Foyle to become a godlike figure of vengeance are the exact physical mechanisms tearing the wiring of his brain apart.
You know, we've all experienced minor, everyday sensory overload, right?
Oh, sure.
Like you're driving in a completely unfamiliar city, it's pouring rain, the traffic is insane, you're lost. And suddenly you lean over and turn the car radio down just so you can see the street signs better.
I do that all the time.
Right. Your brain just hits a processing limit and can't handle the auditory input while trying to process complex visual data. We all know that feeling. But Foyle is experiencing that on a cosmic apocalyptic scale. Every single input is a blinding, deafening overload.
It's unbearable.
But I have to push you on this because Bester's choice here feels incredibly specific. Why did Bester choose synesthesia specifically to break Foyle? Why not just a standard coma or a heart attack?
That's a great question.
Is it because a man who has spent years with his vision narrowed to one single, hyper-focused goal revenge simply couldn't handle the psychological weight of experiencing the entire spectrum of the universe all at once?
That is a phenomenal interpretation of the mechanics at play. Vengeance, by its very nature, is an act of supreme narrowing.
Tunnel vision.
Exactly. To execute his plan, Foyle had to put massive psychological blinders on. He ignored the beauty of the universe, he ignored empathy, he ignored love, he ignored everything except the straight line to Dagenham.
Right.
When that path ends, the blinders are violently ripped off. The sheer, terrifying complexity and interconnectedness of the world rushes in all at once. Synesthesia is a perfect neurological metaphor for a mind that has been rigidly compartmentalized, suddenly losing all its walls.
The dam breaks.
The cognitive dams break, and the flood of unfiltered sensory reality just drowns him.
And with his physical senses completely scrambled and his mind fractured into a million chaotic inputs, Foyle literally cannot process the external world anymore. He has nowhere left to go but inward, which sets the stage for the deeply philosophical, spiritual climax of the story.
Right. Foyle is on the absolute verge of neurological annihilation. He's completely defenseless, and in this shattered state, he is captured by a deeply unsettling, extreme religious sect known as the Skoptsis.
Okay, let's talk about the Skoptsis, because this is where the world building gets deeply psychological.
Yeah.
These guys are terrifying in a very quiet way.
They are. The Skoptsis represent the ultimate extreme of asceticism. Their entire religious dogma is based on the absolute rejection of physical sensation.
They just cut it all off.
They believe that the physical world is entirely corrupt and that to achieve spiritual purity, to commune with the divine, you must surgically and environmentally cut yourself off from all sensory experience. So they construct massive subterranean temple complexes and lock themselves in absolute total darkness and absolute silence. It is a lifelong sensory deprivation tank.
Now let's look at the psychology of sensory deprivation. In the real world, we know that if you put a human being in a completely dark, silent tank for too long, the brain craves input so badly that it starts manufacturing its own.
Right, the hallucination.
You begin to hallucinate.
Yeah.
The internal monologue becomes deafening. But for Foyle, whose brain is currently exploding with synesthetic overload, this environment is a very different experience.
That's exactly what he needs.
Yes. It is within the crushing, absolute blackness of the Skoptsi caves that Foyle experiences a profound, paradigm-shifting epiphany. Stripped of all external chaotic input, his mind begins to reorganize itself. And he realizes that the power of jaunting teleportation isn't just a physical trick of calculating spatial coordinates. He learns to jaunty spiritually.
This is the crucial conceptual leap of the novel. Up until now, jaunting has been treated as an advanced form of physical mechanics. You map point A to point B.
Just moving meat from one place to another.
Right. But in the sensory void, Foyle connects with the fundamental fabric of existence. He doesn't just calculate coordinates, he transcends them. He learns to move through space and time, not by asserting his will over reality, but by deeply connecting with it.
It's an incredible, almost whiplash-inducing shift in his character. He goes from being the most hyper-physical, violent, mechanically driven entity in the solar system to achieving this transcendent, almost monastic enlightenment.
The total rebirth.
And he uses this newfound spiritual jaunting to escape the Skopje caves. But he doesn't escape to go kill more people. He escapes to the very beginning. He jaunts back to the frozen wreckage of the Nomad.
He returns to the site of his original trauma, the place where the monster was born. And in a massive display of power, he summons Dagenham and he summons Prestane to the wreck.
Now remember, Prestane is the head of the corporation.
Yes. He is the absolute embodiment of the entrenched capital power structure that controls this society. Foyle has them both cornered in the void. And crucially, he has the Pyre.
The superweapon.
He has this physical, highly unstable material that is capable of generating thermonuclear level destruction on a planetary scale. This is the moment. The ultimate climax, the ultimate revenge against the system itself.
But he doesn't pull the trigger on them. Instead of destroying his enemies, he does something that, on the surface, seems completely unhinged.
Oh, completely wild.
He takes this weapon, this absolute world-ending power, and he scatters it across the globe. He literally teleports pieces of Pyre to random locations everywhere on Earth. He gives the ultimate weapon to everyone. He gives the apocalypse to all of humanity.
It is a breathtaking, deeply controversial climax. When you analyze the structure, it heavily mirrors the redemption arc of the Count of Monte Cristo, which Bester has openly cited as a primary structural inspiration.
Oh, that makes sense.
Foyle, like Edmond Dantes, achieves a terrifying, godlike level of power and then pivots toward a bizarre form of forgiveness. He confronts the men who created the system that ruined him, and instead of simply killing them, he dismantles their monopoly on power.
He levels the playing field.
He forces them to confront the reality of human potential. He jaunts around the ship, declaring the novel's famous final thesis, "The stars are my destination."
But, is it actually redemption?
Well, that's the debate.
Because here's where it gets really interesting. Bester frames this as a transcendent moment, but the mechanical reality of what Foyle just did is wild. I mean, think about the logistics.
It's terrifying.
He handed out a hyper-lethal, highly unstable, telepathically activated superweapon to every single person on Earth. That includes the virtuous sure, but it also includes the greedy, the insane, the hateful, the deeply depressed.
Anyone and everyone.
It's the equivalent of handing out loaded, cocked handguns with no safety to a room full of toddlers walking out, locking the door, and saying, all right, I hope this teaches you all a valuable lesson about personal responsibility.
That is a very apt analogy.
Did Foyle actually achieve a sublime visionary compassion? Or did he just decide to make his own personal, unresolved trauma everybody else's problem? Did he save humanity, or did he guarantee our immediate extinction?
This raises an important question, and frankly, it is the exact uncomfortable paradox Bester wants the reader grappling with long after the book closes. Foyle has certainly evolved from a brute to a transcendent figure.
True.
His perspective has shifted from the microscopic focus of personal revenge to a macroscopic view of the species. But his idea of saving humanity is not gentle. It is to force them into an evolutionary crucible.
A trial by fire.
Foyle believes that humanity is stagnating under the control of elites like Prestane. The society is technologically advanced but spiritually dead. By democratizing the ultimate weapon, he instantly vaporizes the power imbalance.
He breaks the wheel.
He forces humanity into a binary do-or-die choice. Grow up, learn to handle unimaginable power responsibly, elevate your consciousness, and reach for the stars, or blow yourself to ash tomorrow. It is a terrifying and archaic leap of faith. It is not a safe moral redemption in any traditional sense. It is an apocalyptic challenge.
He's basically holding a loaded gun to the collected head of the entire human race and saying, evolve or die. The training wheels are off.
Yes, precisely.
Which brings us perfectly to the final section of our deep dive. Because Foyle's aggressive ultimatum to humanity in this distant fictional future maps onto our actual reality today in some incredibly chilling, mechanistic ways. Let's step back and look at the real-world echoes, the prophecies, and the parallels that Bester's text presents.
When analyzing the predictive power of mid-century science fiction, it's always instructive to look at the mechanics of what the author got wrong and what they got terrifyingly right.
Right, because nobody is jaunting.
Exactly. Bester, writing in the 1950s, obviously missed the mark on certain physics. There is no biological or physical basis for teleportation by sheer willpower. We are not going to Jante. And magical, thought-activated superweapons like Pyre remain firmly in the realm of fiction.
Right, the hard science is fiction. But the sociological mechanics, the way human beings react to shifts in technology, are where he hits the bullseye.
Exactly. The text makes several chillingly accurate predictions about how technology interacts with power. First and foremost, the inevitability of pervasive surveillance.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the novel, despite his immense wealth and abilities, Foyle is constantly hunted. He is tracked, monitored, and analyzed by powerful corporate entities and law enforcement agencies who use vast networks of data and observation.
Sounds familiar.
Bester accurately anticipated a future where advanced technology doesn't just liberate us, it makes hiding virtually impossible. The mechanics of the society Foyle navigates resonate profoundly with our modern, data-driven surveillance state, where every transaction, location, and communication leaves a digital footprint.
It's essentially an analog prediction of the internet and data tracking. And speaking of the internet, look at the concept of rapid communication in the book.
The Espers.
Right. There is this overwhelming, chaotic, telepathic noise that the Espers have to deal with. Foyle's world is frequently flooded with instant, inescapable, unfiltered thoughts from thousands of other minds. It is a barrage of mental static.
It's overwhelming.
When you look at Bester's fictional society, you can draw a direct, undeniable line to the speed, volume, and psychological weight of our modern digital communication. The endless scroll of social media, the constant push notifications, the absolute 247 inundation of fragmented information and other people's opinions.
It's the same thing.
We are quite literally living in Bester's telepathic static. We have networked our brains to the point of profound psychological exhaustion.
And perhaps most poignantly, the novel deeply explores the enduring mechanics of social disparity. Bester paints a very stark portrait of a society where a massive, paradigm-shifting technological leap jaunting does not organically create a utopia.
It never does.
No, instead, it wildly exacerbates the gap between the elite and the lower classes. The wealthy immediately figure out how to use the new technology to consolidate resources, monopolize real estate, and fortify their power, while the poor remain trapped in new, more complex systems of control.
That is so relevant today.
Bester's work argues that technology itself is morally neutral, but it will always be co-opted by existing power structures. This theme maps incredibly well onto modern debates about wealth inequality, the digital divide, and how automation and data ownership are creating new stratifications in our own society.
I want you, the listener, to think about your own smartphone right now. Think about the physical device sitting on your desk or in your pocket. Mechanically speaking, it is a piece of absolute magic.
It really is.
It connects you to the entire wealth of human knowledge instantly. It empowers you to communicate globally. But consider the dual nature of that tool. It is also actively tracking your location. It is logging your preferences.
It's watching you.
The book makes a compelling argument that tools of liberation will inherently be used by larger entities as tools of observation and control. Bester understood, decades ago, that human nature does not magically improve just because our tools get faster.
He fundamentally understood that if a society is structurally unequal, the introduction of a new, radical technology will simply be weaponized to maintain or accelerate that inequality.
Wow.
That is the enduring genius of The Star's My Destination. It utilizes the flamboyant, imaginative trappings of a space opera to hold a very clear, very harsh mirror up to the darkest, most enduring flaws of human sociology and psychology.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of conceptual ground today. Let's try to wrap this up and summarize the incredible, violent journey of Gully Foyle.
It's been a ride.
We started with a man who is stagnant, barely more than a grunting, dying animal in the freezing dark of a wrecked ship. We explored how the mechanics of a single moment of trauma, an act of cruel abandonment, rewired his brain and transformed him into a walking engine of pure vengeance.
Right.
We broke down how he manipulated the economics of a teleporting society, reinvented himself, and became a monster to hunt down the people who wronged him. But ultimately, we saw that the psychology of revenge hollows a person out.
It burns them down.
It burns the nervous system down to the studs. And it was only in the absolute synesthetic collapse of his own mind, in the darkest depths of sensory deprivation, that Foyle found a mechanism beyond rage. True power, the story argues, isn't the ability to physically destroy your enemies. It's the capacity for profound, fundamental cognitive evolution.
Beautifully said.
He transcended the system, and by scattering the Pyre, he forced humanity to hold its own absolute fate in its own hands.
Yeah, and that deeply ambiguous climax leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought to carry with us.
What's that?
If Foyle's ultimate choice was to hand a world-ending, reality-altering power like Pyre over to the masses, forcing them to either collectively evolve or be destroyed, well, we really have to look at the trajectory of our own species right now.
Oh, here we go.
Because in our world, we are actively creating our own mechanical versions of Pyre. Whether we are talking about the rapid, unchecked advancement of artificial general intelligence or the profound reality-bending potential of CRISPR and gene editing, we are forging tools of unimaginable existential power. And, like Foyle's terrifying gift, the nature of technology dictates that these tools will eventually be out in the wild, democratized, and in the hands of the wider public.
We're getting closer and closer to handing the loaded gun to the toddlers.
Exactly. So the lingering ultimate question Bester leaves us with is this. Will this terrifying leap of faith, this inevitable democratization of world-changing technological power, be the mechanism that ultimately destroys us because we lack the maturity to wield it? Or will it be the exact evolutionary crucible we need to finally grow up, transcend our current biological and social limitations, and truly make the stars our destination?
Wow. That is a heavy concept to chew on. Think about the sheer weight of that responsibility the next time you feel like you're freezing in the dark waiting for a ship that isn't going to stop. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly deep dive. Keep analyzing the mechanics of the world around you. Keep questioning the systems you interact with every day, and we'll see you next time.